Welcome to the Crit House, everybody. I'm Jeff Larson, and we are very happy to have what we think is a fantastic group of people to talk about photography today. Our photographer today is Dorie Dahlberg, who is from New Jersey on the coast, and she is going to show us some work, and we'll discuss it. Our reviewer down on the lower left corner is Ellen Friedlander. She is based out of Los Angeles at the moment, and she is a fine art and documentary photographer. And on the upper right-hand side is, for some people who don't need an introduction, this is Ibarionex Perello. He is a photographer, an author, educator, and the host of the Candid Frame Photography podcast, one of the great resources in photographic education. If you do not listen to the Candid Frame, I highly recommend it. And I say that as a person who has listened to almost every single one. Welcome, everybody, to the Crit House. It's nice to have you all. So, Dorie, welcome to the Crit House.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about yourself and the work that we're going to look at?
Okay, so I grew up at the Jersey Shore, and then went away, lived in other places, but I was a teacher. I was an art teacher for 25 years in Newark, New Jersey. As far as photography goes, I feel like I have two phases of photography. The first phase was like when I was 19, I went to like a photo interest group and learned how to use cameras and blah, blah, you know. But then I got interested again in like the early 2000s, and everything had gone digital in the meantime. So I taught myself digital language, but I'm at a place where, and this is what I need some guidance, where I need some guidance. I feel like I want to shoot digital more often, and I have been, but part of me doesn't want to give up film. So when I walk out of the house, you know, it's like, okay, what camera is coming with me today? It's like, it's like too much. I even thought of maybe just trying to just be a one camera person. So that's my conundrum, let's just say.
So Dorie, this is not a project per se. This is a body of work, or this is a series of images, but there's nothing that ties them particularly together, right?
Only, well, a fair amount of them are down at the boardwalks and the beach. I mean, I would say that I have a large body of work that's down at the beach.
Thank you. All right. Well, Ibarionex, given what she has discussed and told you, what are your thoughts about what you see? What are your suggestions? What's your wisdom?
I love this image. It strikes me as a classic image. I think it reminded me of a picture shot by either Kappa or Smith. You know, in terms of them, I just had this vision of someone walking from a funeral. Mm-hmm. Just because they're all wearing sort of black and it's overcast and it's cloudy, and some of those images from back in, I guess, the 30s or the 40s have similar elements. So it's really an effective photograph. For me, there's, as you mentioned, there's no sort of cohesiveness in terms of the edit, but there are glimpses of things that I'm seeing that I really like. The way that you use the expanse of the scene in a lot of these shots is amazing. You know, where the human figure is a very small element in the frame, but this, you know, the beach, the sky, shoreline, you use to such great effect that it really, those images sort of evoke a sense of like isolation, a feeling, a mood came across with those that weren't consistent in the other images, but I got a taste of that. I'm so glad that you have probably a good number of images there because it's so accessible. So in terms of an edit, I think a tight edit of that work, but thinking in terms of what do you keep seeing over and over again, asking yourself those questions, not just what you see visually, but about how you feel about the place, not just how it looks like, right? This shot is just, I love this, right? And so that's my one initial comment. And the other one is the one with the 8. This is just a great street photograph. It's just fantastic because not only do you use the line and the shape and the light, but there's a human experience that's happening here. I don't know if the guy's exhausted or something else is sort of going on, but the shot evokes so much humanity in it that this is a great shot. The other images don't really reveal that, right? But to my thinking, this image demonstrates to me that you're capable of shooting it, right? Even though I'm only seeing the one, right? So it's just like, if the image is this good, one of the things you put in your shot list in your head is you're looking for genuine human moments along with all this other stuff that you're doing. Again, because you want to create some variety and you don't want to just simply approach a subject matter in the same way over and over again. But I like what I'm seeing overall. It's really, really good.
Ellen, what's your thought?
Thank you.
Did you notice the reflection in the mirror when you took this photograph?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, congratulations. Because honestly, it's like a mirror effect, and there's this, you know, it almost looks like it could be another person, even though we're not. It's not. But that element is just, it's beautiful. I wanted to address your film versus digital, and
Okay.
I don't think that's a thing that you need to address. A camera is a camera. It's either a square, it's a rectangle, it's a tool. So the camera itself should be something that you just feel really comfortable with, and it shouldn't necessarily matter whether it has bells and whistles or not, because at the end of the day, it's your eye and the way you make the photograph, what you see, the gesture of the people, the scene, that's going to make it. It's not the camera.
Yeah, and I think if the camera should only make a difference if it serves the vision for that particular body of work or that project that you're working on. Right. So you may find that, you know, that the scenes at the beach really need to be rendered in film rather than digital, because it evokes what you feel about the place in the photographs, right? And then you can be more purposeful rather than trying to determine which camera do I have when you're not really considering, well, what am I going to create with it? Because even in film days, people would use a variety of different films for the looks that they gave them.
Mhm.
Now we got digital or film and all the variations therein. So
It is too many choices. I mean,
It is too many.
you can't do that. I understand exactly where you are, because I used to feel the same way with lenses, and I would go out with like 100 different whatever, you know, 4 or 5 lenses, and it would be so confusing. And now, you know, you walk out and you just say, I'm going to use this lens today. I may have a couple backups just in case there's something that's super special that I need to change it up a little bit, but I'm going to stick with my main lens most of the time. And that makes you settle in to making the work versus getting distracted by all the other little, like pushing the buttons and what do I want to push and what do I want to, it's just, forget about it.
yeah, the image, can you go to image 11?
Yep.
I have that one down.
Yeah. How long did you spend here making photographs with this scene?
I was down there for quite a while. It was an extremely windy day. It was last fall, and it was very warm. It was just an oddly warm November day. And I was kind of shooting around, and then I saw these kids, and I took a few of those kids.
Because this is
And then this little
go ahead.
girl was like dancing around, you know, and that little boy was just digging away in it. So I just, go ahead.
Yeah, this scene is just like, it's just begging for you to just stay there
Mhm.
until the kids get up and leave, right? because the dynamic and what I would be looking for is a moment of interaction between the two, you know,
Between them.
between them, because everything here is wonderful. Diffused light, the moody clouds, the tracks in the sand, the foam of the waves coming in. This image has everything but the moment, right? It's like that interaction,
Oh, yeah.
that revealing of character and humanity. I mean, she's great as just this red dressed little girl moving around, but I see that other figure there whose butt we're seeing, and it doesn't add, and it doesn't compliment the girl, right? So for me as a photographer, it's like, okay, let's see what plays out. And you just keep shooting until the kids, you know, the parents call the kids over, or, you know, whatever it is.
A very strange thing happened right after I took this and a couple others that I like this one better because of her position. And I was walking toward them thinking I was going to get closer, and the mother was sitting on a stairway down from the beach, and she came over, and I thought she was going to get mad at me for taking pictures of her kids. And instead she went, "Can you take pictures of us?" And she handed me her phone. And I was like, I stopped breathing for a minute. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to be so mad. And then it's not what happened.
So I want to help Ibarionex really bring home that point by going to the next photograph, number 12. Because here is the interaction, you know, and with the people in the distance, in the really white overcast, and you've got the woman glancing back. This is the human element, and it's just really easy for the viewer to like get sucked up into it. So you did a beautiful job here too.
So I'm seeing a really interesting grouping of images here that are sort of on the beach at the 16:9 ratio in color that seem, so if you go from here to here and through, it's sort of an interesting body. And I mean, I don't disagree with your thoughts about the interactions. I mean, you've got a little interaction here, and that seems like a nice direction to go for me. Am I off base?
No.
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just kind of making I'm sort of making the statement. I like, when you have that grand vista of, you know, being in the ocean, you've got so much that the 16:9 kind of allows you to see more of that. I kind of like the tone that you're getting as well.
So that was something that kind of came out of this whole thing about shooting digital, because I revisited some images that were a little bit older, like the one of those two women on the boardwalk. There was a lot of white, and I started thinking that, you know, my world is very horizontal. Actually, I think the best camera for me would be a Hasselblad Panax, which I wish I bought a year ago, because now they're like so much more money. You can't touch them. But I started going back and, you know, reframing some of the older ones, like the one that's number 14, the one that's really dark. Yeah, that was New Year's Eve. And again, you know, I tend to like do a low horizon, so there was just like a lot of, but I felt like the wider format separated the people a little bit better.
It's uniquely your vision, which is the goal. That's what you want to do. So if this is what feels comfortable to you, and this is how you want to show the world your particular voice, then this is a wonderful avenue to go down and explore and play.
Yeah, I think that that's why the black and white ones, I didn't do anything with them. I just left them 3:2. Because they just,
you don't need to get so wrapped up in like,
yeah, I do.
Oh yeah, I know. I've been with you. I understand. I've like stared at photographs and 4 years later, still staring at them. So I get it, but at a certain point, you kind of have to have a little bit of faith in your creative soul. And I do believe you've got one because it's here. And so believe in you. Don't be afraid to fail. Who cares? I mean, failing,
Yeah.
if a photograph doesn't work, and most of them don't, okay?
Most of them don't. That's true.
So if you keep that in mind and just keep thinking about, okay, I really like this particular, a little bit elongated format, and I like playing with a little bit more of an empty space, and but don't get stuck. All right, remember that you want to push it, even though you like a certain way of seeing the world. You got to kind of keep playing with it and changing your angles, and because the viewer and you will get bored.
Mm-hmm.
So Dorie, you said you were going to talk about this picture.
Yeah, I'll just make this really quick.
Pretty.
So one of the reviews that I had on Saturday when we had our in-person reviews were two women that run a pretty nice gallery in New York, and they don't show photographs, but I wanted to sit for them. And they really did their homework. They went to my website, so they saw a lot of the film work. I had sent them, like a resume and a couple questions I had, and they did the footwork, and they thought that they were seeing a thread from this photograph to some of the things that I'm doing digitally. Mm-hmm. And that I shouldn't be afraid of presenting them all together, like going back, because I do happen to really like being down there in bad weather, and I did a series at one time of women alone that, walking the boardwalks by themselves or running by themselves. And they have that isolated kind of quality in that big space. So I think that was mentioned before, that there's a certain kind of isolation going. Like they made a connection between this one and number 13,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, and 14, like the dark one with the light. They were like crazy over that one. They just thought that was the one.
But I wouldn't think number 12 would. I think 12 would work right in that series too.
Yeah, they did. They did like that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they were encouraging me not to feel like pretty much what you said. That that these things go together more than I'm seeing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes somebody else to tell you what you've been doing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things now is that it's still not, I don't know how much work you already have that you could turn into a series, but you're still in the creative phase, right? With just making the work. I think you'd come up with a design, like a book design, that allow you to show both the digital and the negative. And you could use the fact that they were created on different mediums as a means of transitioning from one section of the book to another. You can play with size. You could do a whole bunch of things in terms of just design alone. Mm-hmm. That would make that work. So
by the way, I did a book with a poet friend of mine who teaches, by the way, up by you, Jeff, at Montserrat Art College.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, he did not any, it was all black and white, the whole book. So there were a couple that you've seen here that are in that book, but what I'm showing you is more recent. Yeah, like the guy in the restaurant.
Oh, which is wonderful.
Great show.
Yes. So honestly, I think be less hard on yourself when you're making and being creative. Honestly, you can't do it. Otherwise you get stymied. You're like rigid. So allow the creative flow. You feel it, shoot it. You know, it's especially digitally, it allows you that freedom. Film is a little less because it costs money, but allow your creative spirit to just explore without any kind of gatekeeping. And you will find yourself in a place that you didn't know you were going to get to. And that's magical.
I forget who said it, but they said something along the lines that they looked at the great work of a photographer, assumed that it was like 1/25th of a second that it took them to make it as a shutter speed. And this thing, if you look at all the greatest work, it wouldn't make up a whole second,
Mm.
you know?
I,
And think
Wow.
of how many
Yeah.
hours that they, in years of their lives that they put into dedicating to this craft of photography. And it adds up to less than a second of their entire life. So when you
Well,
have that kind of
Yeah,
perspective, it's just like, well, geez, let me just go out and do it.
that's a great
That's
thought
true.
and a great way to end the discussion here. Thank you so much. Dorie, thanks for having the courage to come on the Crit House. It's always hard to show. It's hard to show your work, and it's hard to show your work, especially in a public sphere. So thank you for joining us. And I would like to ask all the viewers out there, if you have thoughts about either what we've said or of Dorie's work, please put them in the comments for her to reference and for others to sort of think about the artwork and learn from your thoughts too. If you are interested in having your work reviewed on the Crit House, you can certainly register for the possibility of having that happen at our website, thecrithouse.com. I want to thank Ibarionex and Ellen, along with you, Dorie. I am going to be linking again to an article that Ibarionex wrote some years ago called Photo Critiques, How to Make the Most of Them, down in the comments and down below here. And I'm also going to link to a video that Ibarionex did. He discusses the role of light and shadow in photography. It's part of a release of his book that was out a few years back, Making Photographs, Developing a Personal Visual Workflow. So again, Dorie, thank you so much for participating and for having the strength and courage to show you work. And to all of you, thanks for watching the Crit House.